So Trump White House official Seb Gorka was on MSNBC, and this guy's a piece of work. So every time he's on one of these network shows, he spews some ridiculous talking points, and it almost seems like he's doing it to get attention. Like that's the reason he's saying this ridiculous shit. So I'm going to show you a clip here, and not only am I going to dispel the ridiculous crap that's coming out of his mouth, but I'm also going to make a connection between a certain type of terrorist and the reason why they may be doing it. So first, let's show the clip.
The fact that you destroy ISIS doesn't necessarily have an impact on these Western attackers. We don't have to get into a definitional argument here. What do you actually do to fight that?
To get the lone wolf lunatics.
That's a better way to say it.
There's no such thing as a lone wolf. You do know that. That was a phrase invented by the last administration to make Americans stupid. There has never been a serious attack. Let me finish. There has never been a serious attack or a serious plot that was unconnected from ISIS or Al-Qaeda, at least through the ideology and the TTPs, the tactics, the training, the techniques, and the procedures that they supplied through the internet. Never happened. It's bogus.
Okay, so first, I love the expression on the face of Ali Velshi and Stephanie Ruhle. They're just kind of dumbfounded as to what Gorka is saying. And look, I'm not the biggest fan of MSNBC or cable news in general, but you have to be able to parse the insanity from just simply the establishment bubble. So, Seb Gorka is the insanity. The Donald Trump presidency is the insanity. Everything that's going on with Trump and everything Trump says and most of what the people that represent him say is largely absolutely false and just absolutely insane. So first, let's dispel this ridiculous idea that the term lone wolf was invented by the Obama administration. So here's an article by Mediaite, and this is what they say. The concept of the lone wolf terror attack was not invented by the Obama administration. While the phrase lone wolf dates back centuries, it has in recent years been used to characterize terrorists that have self-radicalized and operate without the support of an established terror network. There's even a lone wolf provision in the Patriot Act, a law signed by President George W. Bush following the 9/11 terror attacks and extended to Obama, that allows the surveillance of individuals without ties to terror groups that are nonetheless suspected of terror-related activities. So, apart from the lie that lone wolf was invented by the Obama administration, the more troubling thing here is just the complete lack of nuance within Seb Gorka and within the White House in general. So, there is a major difference between an ISIS attack that is planned and then set out compared to one that is lone wolf. So, when there is a planned terrorist attack, a planned ISIS attack, you can often trace it back to a particular group or individuals and possibly thwart future attacks. But when it's a lone wolf, they simply act on their own, and you can't tie them back to a particular group or individual and thwart future attacks that may be coming from that organization. So this brings me to the real issue with lone wolf attacks and a large reason why they happen, and that's the connection between lone wolf attacks and mental illness. So here is an article from Politico, and they break down the data. Europol Director Rob Wainwright told Politico that recent research has shown that around 35% of the perpetrators of lone actor attacks that occurred between 2000 and 2015 suffered from some sort of mental health disorder. Nisa Takr Mohammed, and a name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, who killed 84 people with a truck in Nice on July 14th, reportedly suffered from a serious psychiatric disorder and was receiving treatment, the report noted. And there are plenty of articles and data that backs this up. And this is why it's important to separate traditional organized crime terrorism from lone wolf terrorism. Because with lone wolf terrorism, a lot of it could potentially be prevented with proper mental health. So when you act like defeating ISIS is going to solve lone wolf terrorism, you're fooling yourself. Because of the connection to mental illness, those people that would be lone wolfers will just move on to some other ideology and find some other reason to kill people. But I actually want to end on something a little different here. Since people are so focused on ISIS terrorism, It's important to note that right-wing terrorism is actually a larger issue. So as Newsweek writes, a joint project by the Investigative Fund at the Nation Institute, a nonprofit media center, and Reveal from the Center for Investigative Reporting has found that within the past 9 years, right-wing extremists plotted or carried out nearly twice as many terror attacks as Islamic extremists. Of the 115 right-wing incidents, police only foiled 35%. Compare this to the 63 Islamist terrorism cases, where police foiled 76% of the planned attacks. And of course, Trump recently froze funding to groups fighting right-wing terror and white supremacism. But is that really surprising?